Good morning. My name is Steve Hernandez, and I'm the Executive Director of the Legislature's Commission on Women, Children, Seniors, Equity, and Opportunity. Today we are enjoying the next installment of our Small Business Matters series, and we're going to be focusing today on local restaurants. Over the past few weeks and throughout the pandemic, we've been focusing on small businesses in Connecticut, which form not only part of the fabric of every main street in the state, but also are part of the backbone of the state's economy and of the local economies, including the family economy. So today I'm really excited to have this conversation about one of the industries in the state populated by people who have been the hardest hit during this pandemic. And we'll be meeting some of the most, what I think are dynamic actors in this local business community. So firstly, we are joined by Chu No. Welcome, Chu.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you. Good morning.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and the restaurant that you represent.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. My name is Chu Ngo, and I'm the chef owner of Lan Chi Restaurant and also a member of the board of Middlesex Chamber of Commerce.
Welcome. Nice to see you. Welcome, Chef Michonne Arrington.
Hello. Thanks for having me. My name is Michonne Arrington. I'm the founder, owner, and chef of The Art of Yum, based out of Waterbury, Connecticut.
Nice to see you, Chef. And Jonathan Shapiro, welcome, sir.
Morning, Steve. Thanks for having me here. I am the owner of a restaurant in Middletown called Herd Restaurant, and also by day, I also am an attorney, and I've been working with a lot of restaurants during this pandemic as well.
Nice to see you. Representative Stephanie Cummings, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm Stephanie Cummings. I'm the state representative for the 74th House District. I also practice law at Carmody, Torrance, Sandeck, and Hennessy, which is right down the road from Art of Yum, which I'm a major fan.
Welcome, Representative Candelora.
Hi, good morning. I'm Vincent Candelora, and I represent the 86th District, which encompasses all of North Branford and parts of Wallingford, Durham, and Guilford. Thank you.
Nice to have you. And last but not least, welcome to our co-chair, Alan Tan.
Hi, I'm Alan Tan. I'm the co-chair of the Commission on Women's, Children's, Equity, Seniors, and Opportunity. Commission on, well, you know what it means. But anyways, I'm here today to listen to the conversation and hopefully offer my 2 cents on this very important sector of our state's economy. Thank you.
Thank you. So I wanted to start the conversation just by focusing a little bit on each of you as business owners and as people, particularly throughout this pandemic. Let's start with you two. I was first introduced by you by our mutual friend Jonathan Shapiro, but I also know that you are part of the center of gravity for new business in Middletown. Tell us a little bit about what brought you to Middletown and why the community is important to you as a chef and owner.
Well, I live in Middletown for 16 years now. I used to work for Bristol Myers Squibb at the pharmaceutical research scientist in Wallingford. And after I resigned there to take time off for take care of my family and young kids, I don't know what I was thinking, but I started cooking for my colleagues at BMS, and they wanted me to cook lunch for them, and I went from just lunchbox from $20 a week to $80 a week in a month. So it was just way too much. So I decided maybe they want me to open the restaurant. So I was looking and to many different towns, including Middletown, Glastonbury, Hartford, New Haven. But when I came to downtown, to the City Hall of Middletown, everyone welcomed me with the open arms, and every head of the department go out of the way to help me to start my business, which I never have any experience before. And now thinking back, I say, what were I thinking? I didn't know anything. But with the support of the city, with the Larry McHugh and all the wonderful staff at the Middlesex Chamber, all the nonprofit organization, and of course, all the wonderful local communities, close-knitted business community on Main Street. They all came and support me. And on my first grand opening, there's like hundreds of people that I look back and I said, I had no idea who they was. But, and with that, you know, they are supporting me, and I'm like so grateful, and got a chance to learn and get to know so many of my wonderful restaurant fellow, and become friends like Jonathan Shapiro, and many of the community leader also get connecting with and helping me, and my network and community just get bigger and bigger, and that's helped me tremendously in you know, pull the community together, especially when the community and family need help and kids need help. And especially this COVID-19, we definitely did pull together and become one big family.
Thank you, Chef. And we're going to come back to that in a little bit. Chef Arrington, tell us a little bit about what brought you to Waterbury and a little bit about your business.
Well, I was born and raised in Waterbury, as well as my partner, Dante Jones. To be honest, my whole journey began at the ESPN CAF, where I'm. They tell me I'm a chef slash legend at ESPN Bristol. So based on that, I started doing personal chef gigs for different athletes and stars and TV personalities, and then I use social media and other outlets to grow the Art of Yum brand. So about 6 years later, here we are on Grand Street, sharing my sometimes crazy but artistic ways of or views of culinary arts. So that's how I became the owner of the Art of Yum. It's similar to Chu. It's just a lot of hard work, dedication, a lot of orders coming from nowhere. Just like you said, 20, 80 in a week or a day. You know what? Let's start a catering company. Then we did a food truck, and then the Art of Yum. And yes, also like Chu said, it's crazy to open a restaurant because the work is so harsh and insanely difficult. But you do what you love. You don't work a day in your life. So I'm happy to be a part of the Waterbury community.
Thank you, Chef. You know, what strikes me every time that we have a conversation about local restaurants is that oftentimes the very people who are in the restaurant wear many, many different hats. You know, you're entrepreneurs, you're business people, you're artists, you're members of the community. Sometimes you have a family, and sometimes you started this with nothing and from an entirely different field. So I'm always impressed by how it is that you can occupy the space in so many different ways, which of course brings me to Jonathan Shapiro, one of the several lawyers on this call that wear several hats. Jonathan, tell us a little bit about Herd, and I know it's not the only interest that you've had in this industry in the city of Middletown.
Yeah, so I got involved in the restaurant industry and really through my legal practice. I represented a few restaurants, and then I was approached by one of my friends and future partner about really legal issues a restaurant was facing, and got involved. And really one thing led to another with that restaurant, and we ended up kind of serving as really outside consultants for the restaurant and helping them turn their business around. And when that concluded, we decided to give it a shot on our own and open our own restaurant, and that's where the concept of Herd came to be, bringing our love for food and my partner's love to food to the community that we all grew up in. And I think, as the other restaurateurs on this call will agree, when you own a restaurant, it's a labor of love, and I think it has to start there. And if you don't have that aspect of it, you shouldn't be in the business, because you've got to start with that love for the industry and the love of serving people. And I think that's an important aspect of the restaurant industry. It's a service business first and foremost, and you're out there and you want to give a great experience to your guests that join you, and spend their hard-earned money with you, and you become a fabric of the community. And I personally, because I'm not the one in the kitchen, I'm the one outside facing with customers when I am at my restaurant, and people love that interaction, and I think they want to go to the restaurant to talk to people, to meet new people, and enjoy new experiences. And I think that's one of the aspects of love that comes into it too.
Thank you, Jonathan. And I grew up working in hotel restaurants and in restaurants, and so we've often called it in my family the family business. And whether it's our first job, it was our first job, or a job that people in my family have chosen as a career through management or otherwise, it's always struck me how it is really a place where people come together. And whether it's the community of people that work together or the community of people that enjoy the space together. And another thing that struck me about the industry is that it really occupies many different places of accessibility throughout the state. And in Connecticut, it's particularly interesting because we have so many towns where every single main street has its example of either a local mom and pop or a mom and mom, a place where they can go and kind of be recognized when they walk in, and where everybody knows their name. Stephanie, it struck me, one of the first things that I read early on during the pandemic and the emergency was your response in suggesting some innovations about how it was that we could think about food differently and nourishment differently, and really try and revitalize industry, not only the restaurant industry, but also local food industry. Tell us a little bit about your energies and some of your thoughts in this space.
Thanks so much. So there is a fantastic organization in Waterbury called Brass City Harvest, and they have developed this this hub. And what they're doing is they're bringing in local farmers market items and distributing it to the community, and also opening up a local farmers market for people to go down to get fresh vegetables. We process all of the vegetables. They're cleaning them, preparing them. There's going to be bread baking. And this is something that is so unique. And the location of the hub is in an underserved community that's actually located on a brownfield. So not only are we repurposing land that was otherwise completely inaccessible, unusable, into something great, but we're doing something in a community that likely needs it the most, and expanding the opportunity for everybody else. I love a farmer's market. If I don't have to drive out to Washington Depot or Litchfield, I can just go right into my own community and support those farmers. And it's a job creator. So there are people coming in, local people who are being hired to do these great jobs, gain awesome skills, and then also do something good for the community. I mean, it's just a win-win-win.
Thank you, Stephanie. You remind me of The Kitchen in Hartford, which is another great example of a service industry and food-based community organization that is actually helping people gain skills and become part of an industry which is so dynamic and provides so many opportunities for mobility. Vince, it's Representative Candelora. It's so nice to see you. Tell us a little bit about your engagement in the industry and your understanding of the relationship between the industry and community.
Well, I think what we're doing right now, just sort of locally, there's just so many moving parts as businesses are trying to reinvent themselves and get off the ground. So for the last couple of weeks, we've been working locally, repurposing parking lots for 10 areas for people for seating, and engaging our local community to make sure that they frequent restaurants, whether now you have the outdoor dining service or through the take order service. So our local community Facebook page, we have members that are posting different restaurants every day and encouraging people to purchase local. And similar, I think, to what Representative Cummings was mentioning, we do have a local farm that tied in with the USDA program that's distributing food to food shelters and to the vegetables and fruits that they're growing, distributing to these shelters that are producing food for people who are in need. Because now that we're seeing all the festivals being canceled for the summertime, we're looking to try to reinvent that food source and how do we get it to the public. So maybe doing drive-through sort of events where the local farms could sell their products at a one-day event. But it really is taking us to reinvent, because one of the things that we're seeing is statistically, people are still apprehensive to go into restaurants. So even as we're opening up, there's still a mindset that some people are just concerned to eat out. So making sure that the takeout system is vibrant is important.
Thank you, Vince. You know, when I'm thinking of some of the words that come out of the experience that I've seen in this industry: reinvent, nimble, response, and also looking out for community. True, I remember you and I had a conversation about some of the things that you did early on through your restaurant to connect with community and give back to areas of need in this, especially during this emergency. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes, at the beginning, when we first got the order from the governor to shut us down with less than 12-hour notice, so the restaurant ended up with a lot of inventory, and we did not have any order, anything, and just like all of a sudden we just restricted to go only, and the whole state, it is a statewide shutdown, so everyone was just confused and scared, I guess, and just stock up everything, clean out everything in the grocery store. So that first week was really difficult for everybody, especially restaurant. And then also with the new changing, the school got shut down, and especially in Middletown, I believe that we have about 40% of our students' populations is under the free food program. So the school worked very hard. The chief of the operation of the school, Middletown's school system, have worked very hard to open school up to get to allow student and family that will come and pick up food, so they still have food. But at that time, there are many, and of course many of these family are on the low income, but right after the shutdown, many of them, especially who work in the food industry and some other industry, lost their job and they become no income family, and they need food in the weekend too. And for such an emergency and short time notice, the school system ran out of their food inventory. So I reached out and coordinate with them, and were able to pull out or connected with at least 26 restaurants on Main Street of Middletown, and able to negotiate and get a very at cost to go pack meal for all of these families for the weekend on the Saturday and Sunday. And of course we need money. And at that point where, usually in this normal circumstance, all of restaurant will come together and it can offer all of these food for free. But during the time was a time when all the restaurants they did not struggle and have no money and got inventory stock up. So I reached out to my good friends, a community leader that I got to know and become wonderful friend of mine, Patty Vassia, and also reached out to the president of Middlesex United Way, where I serve at the board of director. And I said, I need your help. I need you to help me raise some money, and I need $13,000. So I said, I need to help the student and the family, feeding them. But at this time, I can't ask restaurant to do anything for free, because they always there and they always will step up and do anything for me. And this is the time I couldn't go and ask them to give me food for free. So I were able to get help from Kevin Wilhelm and Patty Vassier to ask for help get into their nonprofit organization to get me $13,000. And within 2 days, 7 of the nonprofit organization in Middletown came together, but and also my wonderful landlord, Michael DiPuro, stepped in and got the $13,000 total. So within 2 days, we pull everything together and coordinate 26 restaurants to provide, each restaurant provide 100 meals a day for that day. And we were able to offer them $5 to compensate for that. So everyone was happy. It's a win-win-win situation that the community, the nonprofit organization who all the restaurants help and support, from gift cards to running fundraising to donation and time and service and food, have stepped up at the very difficult time, and then come kind of returning, supporting the local restaurant that have support them in return. So allowing all the restaurants to kind of offer, still be able to help and support directly to our family, local family that desperately need help at that time. So that's, we, even though during the difficult situation, we'll still be able to work together at the community to help out and make our community tighter. And I still continue to coordinate and work with the First Church in Middletown, and they also step up, and they also raising money, and not in the week in the that extent of $13,000 amount, but they were able to do $500 a week to eat one of the restaurant a week, to provide food for the Eddie shelter in Middletown, and also at the other main housing at the YMCA.
So what's so remarkable about the story of what it was that happened in that moment is that you just mentioned about every local institution, a civics institution, health institution, service institution, community organization. And what's beautiful, and I think unique to focusing on local, is how all of these networks are activated, especially in time of need. That does not happen unless you have those existing relationships, and I really applaud you for that. Chef Arrington, Michonne, I know that Middletown has a similar story, as does Art of Yum. Can you tell us a little bit about what you experienced?
Yeah, of course. So when COVID wasn't COVID yet, we knew that we would probably have to shut down our doors for a certain amount of time. But instead of laying down and being negative, I'm about positivity at all times. So I was figuring, how can I help those who are helping us? So I sat down and we created Project Break Room. Project Break Room pretty much was, at first we were attacking different break rooms in Waterbury hospitals and St. Mary's Hospital and loading up, the fridge with, meals. But then when the pandemic became the pandemic, we had to actually have conversations, call, the director of St. Mary's, Waterbury Hospital, of the different convalescent homes, the YMCA, and we had a schedule. So like Monday will be at St. Mary's, Tuesday will be at Waterbury Hospital, so on and so forth. And at first we're thinking we're going to be able to afford to do this for maybe 2 to 3 weeks tops. And then when we got to that point, I decided to use social media and also have more conversations. And we received donations from the public, which was overwhelming. And also the different small businesses who, like Chu said, are having a hard time, also giving to us to help through us. And it was a overwhelming experience. And honestly, thinking about it now, I get emotional about it because it was a lot of work, but it was so relieving to know that we could help those who, again, are helping all of us. And not only that, the 3-week goal, it's been almost 3 months now in running. And so far, we've donated around over $12,000 worth of food so far. I haven't done the math since then. That was about two weeks ago. So that was awesome. And also in the other ways, I was raised by a great man, and he always told me, give what you can when you can. So as the culinary supervisor for PAL, we used to give or actually teach culinary courses to kids who don't have much. And instead of just forgetting about them, we've changed it to, we changed it to a Zoom class, and we recorded culinary classes and sent them food from the different places that are giving them free vegetables and different type of meats to their home so they could cook for their families while they watch us on Zoom, teaching them how to do basic things, like how to do chicken parm, how to make chicken pot pie. And yes, is it time consuming? Yes. Is it worth it? Absolutely. And I appreciate all the local help that we received. I'm not that great with names like Chu is, but you know who you are if you're watching this. I appreciate all of you who have donated either your time or even on social media sharing what we have been doing. It has been overwhelming. And also appreciate you, Ms. Representative Cummings, for your gift card, giving your cards to different people in the front lines. All of this kindness coming from random people at a time like this, honestly brings emotions. And I'm gonna stop talking now.
Thank you so much, Michonne. You know what's so powerful is that as we try and figure out at the macro level how to organize around recovery, how to re-energize our different industries, what our communities show us and our local industries show us is that they have the infrastructure in place to help each other and help themselves. And I think we all benefit from learning from the experience of how it is that you've been able to pivot in what has to be one of the most difficult times and really create something powerful, in at times something new, and something that's going to be lastingly dynamic even past this emergency. And the fact that it's community based and the fact that it's based also on giving back is really, really powerful. Jonathan Shapiro, I know that you early on reached out to us to see how it was that we could work together on giving back. So tell us a little bit about your experience in Middletown with your restaurant and just in the community.
Well, I think you're seeing a number of different things. I mean, I was, Chu had come to me with the initiative that she had talked about, and I did what I could to help in that regard. And you're seeing it in different facets. I'm seeing it throughout Middletown, other restaurants that are providing meals for essential workers and meals to those in need, as part of their programs. And you see the community supporting that and giving back. One of the examples where you're seeing the giving back in Middletown right now is Middlesex Health, which is our hospital system that's based out of Middletown. Every June has a program called Appetite for Life. And what Appetite for Life is a program where all the area restaurants get together and host different nights where they give a portion of their proceeds to the hospital, and in particular its cancer center, as a way of supporting it. This year, obviously, Appetite for Life is not taking the same form as it used to be. My restaurant last year, we supported that event. We had the launch party last year, which was wonderful, fun event of bringing the community together. This year, because of things being what they are with COVID, the hospitals has turned the tables, and what they're doing is they're asking people to buy gift cards to our restaurants as a way of supporting us. So again, it's kind of what you were saying of people coming together to support those who need it, because the restaurants right now, it's a struggle. Even though things are starting to open up, as someone mentioned earlier, people are still hesitant to go out. Takeout is great. Takeout only gets you so far. And there's some restaurants that I think went into this equipped for takeout because their type of dining is more typical for takeout. Those that don't have takeout as part of their volume business, needed to pivot and adjust their menus and to some extent reinvent what they're doing to make it more attractive and get the word out that way. But again, just going back to the Appetite for Life thing, to me, it was a way of seeing the community come together in a different way to support the restaurants that, I think when you're doing fundraising and events throughout the course of the year on a regular basis, restaurants are one of the first things people come to for donations because gift cards are easy. They're a way of promoting the business, but it's a way of supporting fundraisers in a nice fashion. So it was nice to see the hospital system come back to support the restaurants like that as well.
Thank you, Jonathan. Representative Cummings, oftentimes when we have conversations at a policy level about supporting the local infrastructures of businesses and communities, and I think of families as small businesses myself, but when you think of supporting local infrastructure, we forget that these small local businesses are part of the community fabric. And we seem to lump them in with what we think of sort of bigger industry and concern. You seem to have jumped right in terms of helping and giving back and really reaching out to local businesses and restaurants and being part of the solution. Tell us a little bit about what you did.
So I was involved in the gift card project, which was a really unique way to say thank you to all of our frontline responders and also to support our small businesses. So what the project was is we encourage people to go out and buy a gift card to their favorite restaurant or their favorite small business. And then we would donate those gift cards as a thank you to Waterbury Hospital and to St. Mary's Hospital. We collected over $1,000 worth of gift cards in just a couple weeks. And we were able to donate them and say, hey, thank you very much for what you're doing. But it also provides those small businesses with an infusion right at that time. And the hope was that maybe someone who received that gift card had not tried that restaurant before, and they would be exposed to something new. They'd be able to share that information with their family and their friends. And it was also the promotion of those small businesses of who were involved. So we really viewed it as, a collective community engagement to be able to say, these are small businesses that are still operating. They still need your support. And thank you, frontline workers. And how do we merge those two things together? We did get quite a few Art of Yum gift cards, which was very exciting. It's just a nice way to be able to be supportive of everybody who is so much part of the community fabric, as you mentioned.
Thank you, Representative. You really show that leadership does matter. And one thing that's been really striking about this emergency, not only as a part of the legislative infrastructure, but seeing what's happening in communities, is that legislative leaders immediately when this happened went back to their communities, and they were trying to figure out themselves, how can we help? What can we do? And that's the beauty of having a citizens legislature. And so Representative Candelora, at some point we're going to come back. The legislature is going to come back, and we've learned a lot in the last few months and weeks about what works, what doesn't work, and what can be done better. I know that knowing you and your leadership style, I bet you and Representative Cummings are building a list of things that you've seen have worked and have not worked, and things that you want to encourage. Tell us what you're thinking in terms of some of what you'd like to see change, improve, or develop.
Yeah, I think from this perspective, in the context of this conversation with businesses, and as we're starting to reopen, I think one of the pieces that's very important is providing the transparency to the process to allow the grassroots businesses to give input to government on how to reopen. Because, being the state rep and in the community and boots on the ground, we hear of so many stories of how to do this and do it right. And I think that information needs to flow upward rather than the reverse of it flowing downward. So I myself, as I'm struggling to reopen my business, which has a food component and then has the sports and recreation, is trying to give the state a better understanding of how this industry is going to move forward So we have a lot of private sector ingenuity that's not connecting with the government. And I think in some areas we could do better and reopen some things more quickly by tapping into that ingenuity and understanding each market. And then I also think, from an enforcement perspective, we have to give businesses the tools to be able to operate going forward. There's a lot of questions of, do you allow somebody in who's not wearing a mask, or don't you? What are our liabilities in operating? Can we be sued? The commercials are already starting, which I think scares a lot of business owners. How are we responsible if somebody does get sick? So we have a lot of work to do, I think, over the next 6 months of that back end piece to help businesses grow out of this again, because going in, Connecticut was in a volatile market. And I think we're seeing that our unemployment shot to almost being number one in the country of unemployed. And we didn't restrict our businesses as much as some of the other states. So it shouldn't have been that bad, and it is. And so I think we need to understand this data and try to help us grow out of this.
Thank you, Representative. There's what's been really compelling from the very beginning, and I think it's something that is hard to fathom until you really see it or unless you live it every day. And that is the necessarily intimate and wonderful relationship between local business and the people who live here in the state of Connecticut, residents. And that interplay between microeconomies of the family, the economies of community, and the economy of the state, so intimately connected. And we know that when one thing is unraveled, everything else is impacted. And it's so important to think of it that way, because when we think about how it is that we, and who it is that we engage in the conversations about improving these mechanisms, then we really have to have everyone at the table. And I appreciate you saying that, because what better a participant in a conversation of how it is that you improve an industry, how it is that you grow an industry, support an industry, all the way down to the local level than the industry itself. So thank you for saying that. I want to get back to, we'll get back to leadership in a bit, but I want to get back to just a question of moving forward. And, Representative Candelora, you mentioned the public trust in returning to a lot of our institutions. I think about the restaurant industry. I think about, barbering and cosmetology opened earlier this week. And some of the things that they have done to lead. We had an earlier show in our series on focusing on that industry. Also, the physical activity industries that are expected to open in June, and some of the concerns there. I'll be on the lookout for a conversation on that as well. But just for us, reopening has its own dynamics. So tell me, I want to start with you, Chef No. What are you doing to help build the trust of people coming back into establishments in this new format and in this new way?
Well, we are now in the uncharted water, and we don't know what it's going to be even in the fall and next year. So with the regulation and a recommendation that we have from the state, that still is changing all the time. So it's not concrete. So I'm just kind of, right now, I'm just kind of do observation, sit and watch, and also work with the local health department and see what is the guidelines and what can we do that would be practical and safe, that keep our, excuse me, our employee safe and our customers safe, and how to make it into a practical routine that we can, that our staff can routinely doing it and remember it, and not just one time and that's it. And so we have to be we now have to cleaning everything, make sure everything clean, get not only clean but sanitizing clean. So keeping everyone in that practice of hand washing, and yes, we are now mandated to wear masks and wear gloves, but it's not, the glove is not gonna be, the most effective way because people, when we wear gloves, we don't know how dirty our hand is, and yet it will protecting maybe the person wearing gloves, but it might be contaminate and spread it to other people. So especially when you're handling food, it's not the most effective and most safest way. And hand washing is the most effective way. And I know at least I am, and people that in my restaurant, we wash our hand like 50, 100 times a day because we know when our hand dirty. So those are the things that we take into consideration and be conscious, and then kind of have to find out what is the best practice way to work in our daily environment and keep everyone safe. And also trying to, reconnecting with our customers. And I keep an open, connection and very close to my customers. We text and they checking on me, and it's just been wonderful to know how caring our customers are and how trusted they are. So when you have that kind of relationship, it's already half of the battle, but making them trusting the way that we operate and have our staff and train, and then also providing a good service and a good quality food for everyone, and comfort food for everyone to enjoy, it will be another factor. But now we are in a very different environment where consumers' behavior have changed dramatically. There are still majority of people who don't feel comfortable to go out, and also don't even feel comfortable to even go and take out because of multiple reasons. Either they have family members that have immunocompromised, or they personally have it. So it's a lot of things to consider. So now, as a restaurant owners, we have to thinking of different way of how we can reinvent, how can we create some different platform of doing business, because our dining business is not going to be back to normal as before. So how can we find way to supplement the income that we lost due to the dining, or reduced restriction of or reduced of the capacity of the dining dining space that we have. So that's what I'm working on, and kind of whatever idea that I have, I'm kind of recommend it or pass it on to my colleague, my fellow restaurants, and then trying and continue to connect with them and see what they're doing, how they're doing. And every day, I check with other restaurants here and there and see how they're doing, how business that week, and what can we, how can we put our brain together and help us moving forward and learn from each other. So that's what I've been trying to do.
Well, thank you, Chef. It's interesting because you remind us that a lot of those hallmark responses, a lot of what brought you to the industry, a lot of what has helped you manage the pandemic throughout the pandemic, which is bringing community together, communication, staying close to your consumers, but also giving back. You describe those as similar elements that are going to help you weather this new reality. So there are lessons learned there. And there's another thing too that is really striking, and it's while people, families, businesses, communities are really trying to pivot and figure out their new normal coming out of this emergency, that need for consistency in messaging, consistency in rules, consistency in how it is that we are communicating with our communities, to not only to build a level of trust, but also to allow for the types of dynamic innovations that you are having to do every day, and to encourage them and to support them. So thank you so much for that. Michonne, same question to you. What are you doing to help build back the public trust in coming back to the bricks and mortar of what is a restaurant?
Honestly, the biggest thing is transparency. Just being super transparent. If you watch our story on Instagram or Facebook, you know that we are sanitizing that thing from top to bottom, side to side. First time using a power washer, kicked me back a little bit, but I'm fine. My shoulder's good. So you're doing all the little things and showing people that you're doing it. And I believe that a lot of your customers know that they know who you are, so they know that you're trying your best to give them, to keep them safe. So just checking off all the guidelines and making sure you're doing what you have to do when you have to do it. Besides transparency, I think it's communication with your team, and also just learning, relearning. It's fun to change. Is not bad. It's fun to learn different ways to operate your business. Now I love to plate. I miss plating. I come home and I plate crazy for no reason just because I miss plating so much. But now we have to, everything's takeout. So instead of looking up and seeing all of our different beautiful plates, I see aluminum and plastic. It's fine. It's fine. Learning, changing the menu so it's more, takeout worthy. And changing different wrapping so it stays fresh longer, since we extended our radius of deliveries, just to know that it stays hot. Our already young van now has a bunch of hot boxes in it, just so they could reach Bristol or Plantsville safely. And also I'm not a coder, but I'm creating an app so it's easier, so people come to our restaurant when we do reopen. Instead of having a hands-on menu, QR code straight to the app. You can order, tell me what table you're on. Boom, your food is there. You're safe. I'm safe. My staff is safe. Everyone's happy, and you're gonna have delicious food by OK Chef. Teasing. And I hope that by doing all those things and making the right, the right moves, people will understand. Like, listen, they're trying their best to give to give them safe food and a safe environment to eat and enjoy their food in. I like it was mentioned before, having clearer guidelines would be helpful. Right now, I'm wondering if I should, invest in a $400, hands-free sanitizer stand, or if I should actually get fiberglass in between each table. That's the one thing that's kind of irritating me now. Because those small, investments are huge in the long run. But besides that, just being transparent, loving to learn, and different is cool. Like just change what you are used to, relearn, and then what you do learn after that is that you could take your old, mix it with the new, and you have a whole new restaurant concept, and it could be a beautiful thing.
Thank you, Michelle. As we think about back to our state leaders, emergency response has been we've created patterns of how it is we respond to emergencies. And usually emergencies are natural or man-made in some way. And, you think of a hurricane response, you think of an earthquake response, but this type of response, the response that is not only a public health problem that leads to disparities in the economy and a real breakdown of the infrastructure of the economy, the producers and the consumers coming together. This is new. It seems to me that part of that public response infrastructure should be our industries on the ground. Stephanie, what do you think about that?
I completely agree with you because, the hat I wear all day long is that of a lawyer. So I cannot articulate appropriately what a restaurateur is going through during this time. And I think that the more we engage in conversations and the more we reach out to our business communities and what people are actually experiencing and how those rules are impacting them. Chef Arrington mentioned earlier, does he have to invest in this $400 hands-free sanitizing machine? Does he have to put up these plexiglass pieces in between different tables. Right now, the rules can be rather unclear, and it leaves businesses uncertain of what their expectations are going to be. It leaves the public uncertain of what their expectations are going to be. So additional clarity, but developing that clarity through conversations with the business community about what they need to be able to provide for their customers, because they already know. They know what their customers are going to be looking for, and they could be such a powerful voice in that conversation about how we develop these rules and regulations, rather than just putting something out there and saying, this is what you have to do, but it being so very unclear.
That's right. Representative Candelora.
Yeah, I mean, I think there should be flexibility for the businesses to be able to deliver the safety. And I think the state has provided enough sort of wiggle room to let them make those decision making. I am concerned going forward. You talk about the unraveling of the economic infrastructure. Is in particular the hospitality restaurant industry. You can't make up that lost time. And so there are some industries that have lost a very critical season. We talked about when the pandemic first, the orders came down, it was right before St. Patrick's Day. That hurt a lot of restaurants. Come July 1st, the tax bills are still due. And so what are we going to do to help them climb out? We have minimum wage increases on the horizon. And I do see a perfect storm for this industry and trying to get it to climb out, and having the state have a better understanding of where it is. Because you open your doors today, and I think even if restaurants were allowed to reopen completely, I would be surprised if anyone would reach 50% of where they were when they closed, just given everybody's thought process. It's interesting, people aren't even going to hospitals anymore. We continue to get reports that people are delaying care too long. And so we need to make sure that there's public service announcements encouraging people to go and get the medical care they need. It's safe to go back to a hospital. We have that same challenge for restaurants. And so the state, as we move forward and figure out this virus, the numbers are going well, that we begin to help promote these businesses to say, we've put these precautions in place because we're making them safe now for you to go there.
Thank you, Representative. Jonathan, you wear several of these hats as a former president, but also a restaurateur and a lawyer. Tell me, how do you build the public trust? What is the role of the industry in emergency preparedness and response? And finally, what can we do to help this industry as it gets itself back on its feet and moving forward?
I echo a lot of things that everyone has said, during this talk just now. Number one, I think in terms of building trust in the industry, I think it starts with the businesses. I would say 99% of the restaurants out there are doing it right and want to do it right. And I think people have to remember from the trust standpoint, restaurants going into COVID were already a fairly highly regulated industry. And anyone who works in a kitchen knows and is acutely aware of sanitary conditions and what needs to be done to serve food safely to our customers. If you're in the kitchen and you're cooking a meal and you don't cook it correctly because it's undercooked, or you have salmonella, you have all sorts of issues that all restaurant owners are already aware of, and they're aware of it to make sure that their customers are safe. And I think making sure that message gets out that restaurants, we know what we're doing in terms of preparing our food safely for our guests going into this crisis and coming out of the crisis. It's no different in that regard. I think a lot of the people out there that own restaurants, and Representative Candelora kind of mentioned this, of having some of this input coming from the bottom up and not just coming from the top down in terms of the recommendations. Because a lot of us that operate our businesses do know what we're doing and do want to do it correctly, safely, and right. And I think the practices that you already see being implemented, are best practices because they have the knowledge in the background. Chu mentioned it. You've got this requirement now that, our staff has to wear gloves. And all the best practices out there say that gloves is not the best practice. Washing your hands is the best practice. And if you're wearing a glove, our staff members are supposed to change those gloves in and out every single, second of the day. as opposed to washing their hands, which is the safest practice. I think it's going to be important for the government coming out of this to help build that trust for us. To encourage people that it is now safe to visit these restaurants and go there. From our standpoint, I know the things we're looking at my restaurant are the capacity issues. We're expecting that when the restrictions are lifted, I don't have outdoor seating at my restaurant, so we're kind of limited to takeout at this point. But I am already thinking of what are things going to look like once we're allowed to open, and I am planning at this point for reduced capacity. And anyone who's in the restaurant industry knows that the margins are incredibly thin, and operating at a reduced capacity is not something that is very feasible for the long term if you're going to make it financially and meet all your obligations. So I've been looking at how can we, do a couple of things to still hit our numbers, so to speak, so we can operate successfully. And some of that looks at our reservation system. I know how many bodies I need to get into my restaurant on a given weekend to make sure I hit those numbers. And some of it may be involving changing behaviors of our customers. Kitchens always get busy at dinner time. It's crazy. 6, 7 o'clock. That's when restaurants hit their busiest peak, and the restaurants, the kitchens get slammed. So, are there ways we can spread out and encourage people to start getting larger people to start dining earlier in the night and later in the night, so you can still, even though you can't put all those people in the restaurants at the same time, but can you develop a reservation system where you're encouraging people to, come there for a 4:30 dinner, have a 2-hour block, and then rotate a new group in at 6:30. So you're keeping the capacity numbers where they need to be to maintain the distancing rules, but also allowing the restaurants to, get the body count, so to speak, in there, so they can operate successfully, for the long term and not just the short term. Do we need screens in there? I'll say I've put in screens in my restaurant already in our bar area. Between the bartender and the people sitting at the bar. I know the opening the bar is going to be a little bit later down the road from what we're hearing. But, for now, I'm putting those precautions in place just to try to stay ahead of the game, so I'm not scrambling, at the last second when I'm finally allowed to open of, all right, but now I have all these restrictions in place that I can't possibly meet, so I won't be able to open anyway. So I think having, clearer guidance earlier is better, and I think getting the input from the businesses ahead of time is great. The Connecticut Restaurant Association has been, doing incredible work out there in, and I know they've had a lot of communications with government officials on reopening and what it looks like. I think some of the trust has to come from the government too, that our businesses know what we're doing. And we're happy to work within regulatory frameworks. We've done it successfully in the past, but the government has to trust the industries to give the input that we need to operate successfully as well.
Thank you, Jonathan. And to the point of how it is that we come together after this, to Representative Candelora and Representative Cummings, how we come together and ensure that we are part of the solution and lifting some of these barriers. I know, Jonathan, that you're going to be through your leadership at the Bar Association, you've been working on a small business clinic. We're going to be hosting at our next Small Business Matters, the Small Business Clinic. Can you tell us just a couple sentences about that?
Yeah, just very briefly, so we have a COVID task force at the Bar Association, and I'm chairing a subcommittee on really the general public and its needs. And one of the things that we've developed along with a number of law firms, it's really a collaboration between the Bar Association and a number of the law firms. And Robinson & Cole was the lead on that. And it's a small business clinic. It's 45-minute consults to any business under 25 employees that needs assistance and guidance. And there's a link on our webpage. I'm happy to circulate that afterwards, where businesses in need can register for that and be matched up with a lawyer that'll help provide that guidance. It gives a 45-minute session. It's a great resource that's out there to help the small businesses.
Thank you so much. And for our viewers, we will be hosting that small business clinic in the next few days at the commission to talk about what those resources are and how they will help. I know that there is a particular focus on the smaller businesses, also women-owned businesses and minority-owned businesses. So thank you so much for that, Jonathan. Chairman Tan, as we come upon the hour, I wanted to give you the opportunity to reflect a little bit about what we've been talking about today.
Sure. Thank you for that, Steve. So I just wanted to thank all of you for taking the time to share all your feedback with us today, because it's very important and I'm sure the legislators know this, that we collect information that helps us make better decisions. We also can't let the perfection be the enemy of the common good here, because, you know, a lot of people made some great comments about trust and communication. Hindsight's always 20/20. And we got to be able to trust our businesses, because, you know, sick customers don't make repeat customers. And at the same time, we also want to make sure that we're effective in our communication to our small businesses and our business owners, because if they're constantly scrambling, that's valuable capital that they could be using. I'm a small business owner myself, so I know how valuable capital is. And it's very important that we give our businesses some solid guidance so that they can be successful in our new normal as we look for the future as we move on from this virus. So thank you all very much. And I really appreciated all of you coming up and sharing your feedback. I found it very informative. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Alan. And Chef No, Chef Arrington, Jonathan, Representative Candelora, Representative Cummings, thank you so much for being part of this conversation today on small business matters, focusing on local restaurants. I think it's really clear that for each of our small businesses, especially our community interwoven businesses like restaurants, I don't think it's lost on anybody who's been watching today that while you may be the face of your restaurants, behind you are families. They are the people who work with you, the artists that create the meals, the people that keep the infrastructure moving, all the way to the micro economies of the families that you help work with and support through your efforts in business and ingenuity. We want nothing more than for you to continue to be successful. And I look forward to working with our leaders to support you as much as we can in this new normal, taking all that we have learned about communication, about transparency, about trust, and about our mutual benefit so that we can only improve the path for you. So with that, I want to thank all of you again for joining us. Thank you to our leaders for being there, and let's keep talking.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.